right, good evening and welcome to the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant here at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Luke Morrow alongside the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, for tonight's Coaches Show, where we will recap Saturday's game against VMI in the 75th edition of the Military Classic of the South and get ready for the game Saturday back at Johnson-Haygood Stadium in Western Carolina, coming to town for a 2 o'clock kickoff. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. You know, we had a good couple of days of practice here, got over last weekend's game, and moving on until right now.
Yeah, well, let's then humor me here tonight, and we'll go back and recap and walk through that game against VMI. The 34-21 final score in that rivalry game. At the end of the day, when you went back and watched the film and broke it down, what was the biggest difference in the outcome in that game?
Well, first of all, is we didn't show up to play, and that's the number one thing. We didn't make enough plays. VMI made plenty of plays. I've got to hand it to them. They came in with a plan, executed their plan way better than we did, and we've got to do a better job. And it starts with me. We've got to find a way to be able to get motivated for that game and get up for that game. And after so many wins, I just didn't think we had the hunger inside of us. I thought we would, being able to come back, play at home after a long game on the Sanford week. I thought we would do a much better job of coming back and playing at home and getting after VMI a little bit. And we did. I mean, I thought we started the game exactly the way we wanted to start it. We took the ball. We moved the ball down the field. We had about 8 or 9 play drive. Mm-hmm. We were able to score. We had a little bit of adversity there. We had a penalty. That set us back, but we were able to overcome it and get it inside the 5-yard line and score with it. And we kicked the ball back off again. And the defense does a great job. They get the ball back for us, and we get the ball about midfield, and that's when we kind of derailed, and that was it for us for the day. And that's kind of what I said to the team. I think we met a little bit of adversity. We didn't handle it very well. We got to find a way to handle it very well. We went down 7-7 after we turned the ball over. We're still very much in that game. We just got to continue to do what we do. And unfortunately, we just never rebounded.
A couple of things in there that I want to follow up on, but the first one being that you had some interesting comments in your press conference Monday that you kind of just alluded to here, where, as you said, you weren't surprised. You kind of saw this coming over the last couple of years in this game with VMI, and it reminded me of, I'm the youngest of my parents' 3 sons, and so, growing up, they were always bigger and better than me at everything, and then you get to a certain point where you reach a certain age and you can compete with them. Was it similar in this, that VMI over the last 12 years, you guys were able to win every season, and now VMI, they have, the most talented team maybe that they've had, as you said, in your 6 years here at the Citadel, and that was a different version of VMI that you saw on Saturday. Yeah,
we saw this, last year was a 2-point ball game, mm-hmm. and they had their opportunities there. The difference last year to this year was they turned the ball over. They made the mistakes. They did the things that really cost them the football game, where that flipped on us this year. We made those mistakes. We panicked a little bit. We got behind early. We didn't respond very well, and those are the things that I saw coming last year. And really, it goes probably almost 2 years ago. We've had some pretty good ball games with them. They've always played us very close, and they've done a good job defending us. And we were able to get a few turnovers here and there, and the defense has kind of bailed us out a little bit.
Looking back at that game, do you think there was any sort of hangover effect from the 4 overtime game out in the heat on the road the week prior?
I don't know. Those things start to add up after the season. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me that in a press conference, and certainly it didn't help. But it certainly shouldn't have been the reason that all those things had happened. We should still been able to execute a game plan in that game. Does it help us, catch a few more passes? We should have been able to catch some of those and be able to complete a little bit more of those and make a play on the ball and the fade ball and make a play on the ball when it was 2nd and 25. So we're there to make plays. We just couldn't make them for some reason. Our feet were stuck in the ground a little bit, or our arm slot was just a little bit off. But other than that, man, hey, we've got to move on, and it was a difficult weekend for us, and we've got to move past that and the Sanford game.
Certainly not happy with the final score, and the wrong side of the stadium got to celebrate that final score, but what was the atmosphere like? It was a sold-out crowd, biggest crowd at Johnson-Haygood Stadium in a couple of years, from the sideline when coaching in a game like that. What was it like to play in front of all those fans on Saturday?
Well, it was a great environment. It was good. I had the view of the far side most of the day, and I thought their fans were extremely engaged, and they did a good job with mm-hmm. that. We didn't give our fans enough to cheer about other than the one drive that we had at the beginning of the game. So I think they did a good job of getting our fans out of the game and really isolating it and eliminating it, and getting their fans involved in the game. They had a lot of big plays, and when they needed one, they made them, and we didn't.
More passing attempts in Saturday's game than the first 5 games combined. Was that part of the game plan, or was that what VMI's defense dictated you guys would have to do Saturday?
Both. Is they play with 8 man in the box all the time. He's got a good understanding. Coach Walkenheim's an Air Force guy, and he knows exactly what the numbers look like. And when you got 8 in the box versus our 7 in the box, there's going to be something that's got to give. So we knew we had to get the ball to the perimeter, get the ball out, and we did a good job of it on the first drive, and we did exactly what we wanted to, and that was our game plan. Unfortunately, is when you get derailed and you don't complete enough of those balls throughout the course of a drive, is you're going to get yourself behind. So the 2 things that we had were the wide receivers on the perimeter, and we had the fullback inside. So we had to keep on mixing up between those 2, and when you get behind, you just can't leave the fullback inside all the time. So you got to be able to find a way to get the ball on the perimeter. They were giving us what we wanted, and we went into the game saying that we've got to take what they give us and be patient with the perimeter game, and eventually we'll be able to get one out, and Raleigh will be able to get one out in the open field, and we just couldn't do it.
I'm always curious about that as a play caller, about that patience, and when they're giving you a certain something that maybe is the opposite of what you were planning to do, or the score dictates a change in your play calling style. How do you handle that balance, and is there some sort of line that you can draw to that at a certain point in the game or a certain score, you're like, okay, now let's flip things, let's change course because of the way this game has gone?
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and a little bit was we put ourselves in that uncomfortable position, and when you get behind by about 14 to 17 points, everything in the first half was fine. I mean, I thought we were in decent shape. All we really needed to do was come out and get a stop in the second half, because we did go down and score in the next drive, our first possession of the second half. So if we could have gotten a stop right there and been able to keep ourselves in the ball game, that would have been just perfectly fine. Unfortunately, we went down by 17, got it back to 10, and then from there it was a little bit of back and forth. You're just starting to run out of time, because the one thing that they do as an air raid type of team, they dink and dunk you enough where they can get 15 play drives out of it and 12 play drives out of it, and they can eat up a clock just like we do. So they played their game against us as well, and really, which is what our game plan usually is. You
mentioned the stack box that they were playing against you. Was that the biggest obstacle when you look at the run game for you guys on Saturday?
Yeah, but really just getting behind. I thought maybe being able to complete 1 or 2 more passes would have loosened up the box a little bit more. Being able to run the fullback in there a little bit more would have been able to tighten the box a little bit and get those guys, because we had no perimeter game with the way that they're playing it, which is fine. We take what they give us. However, we really needed to be able to complete a few balls to be able to stretch out some of their backers.
Whenever talking to your offensive coordinator, Coach Lou Conte, during the week, he always says, we know what they typically do on defense, but then when we run our offense against them, it's so different from anybody else that they'll use something different defensively that we haven't seen on tape all year. And VMI's coach after the game said that they did some things differently on defense than past games. When you watch the tape, and even from past matchups against VMI, did they do anything differently defensively Saturday in that game?
Structurally, they're the same. It's just the way that they deployed them a little bit. Is they're always going to have about 8 in the box, which is what they did. They played a 5-3 structure, bear defenses, which is what we've always seen out of them. We saw it fairly similar to the Sanford week the week before, so it wasn't too much of an unknown to us. However, they just took their defensive ends, widened them out a little bit, and boxed everything back into the box, which is something a little bit new for us. It just creates a little bit of a different matchup that you're going to have to compete with inside. When you go back and you look at it, there are some things that you can get out to it, but you got to have a plan for that as well, and you've got to probably execute a little bit in practice to get up against that a little bit. The number one thing that we didn't do was execute our pass game, which is what we really needed that day.
You mentioned the pass game first drive. Brandon Rainey goes 3 for 3. You go right down the field to get the touchdown. First time that you scored on the opening possession this year. What led to the success? Was it just executing in the passing game on that first drive that led to those points?
Yeah, we did. We had confidence in what we were doing. We converted a couple of first downs there. We got the ball onto the perimeter, barely onto the perimeter with our toss game, which I thought worked out well for us. And we had one counter option in there that we were able to get the quarterback loose on. And then we were able to complete a fade ball for about down to the 5 or 6 yard line. That was really key to helping us out and getting into that score.
And then after that, the next 7 possessions were scoreless. You had the fumble in there when you had good field position right around midfield. Is it as simple as to say that the pass game you didn't execute as well? I know after that first drive, Brandon starts 3 for 3, and then I think it was 4. The next 5 were incomplete. Was that the biggest difference between that first drive and then the rest of the first half offensively?
So the second drive is we started off with just a traditional dive play, and we got 6. We were getting 5 or 6 yards out of it. We do it again right there, and that's when the ball gets turned over. Mm-hmm. And from there is, that gives them the ball right there at midfield. They go down and score there. So we're trying to create a big play and get the momentum to swing back in our favor, which is what we were doing. And it was so inviting. The pass game was so inviting to us that we were winning routes all day long. We just couldn't be able to get the football there when we absolutely had to. So eventually you're going to have to stay on track and be able to run the fullback back inside. But however, you're limited in what you can do. You've got to be patient, pump the fullback back inside, or change up a couple formations, which is what we did, and then once again work the ball to the perimeter with the passing game. We just took more shots than we probably typically would, or that we probably should have.
Logan Billings got the majority of the carries at B-back, and I'll ask you about him personally in a moment, but no Clay Harris on Saturday. Is he okay moving forward?
Yeah, we thought Clay was going to be a game-time decision, and he was. I thought he would be able to go, wasn't able to go. Amike is the same thing, kind of just have these nagging injuries at fullback, unfortunately. Not to say Logan, I thought did a heck of a job. Logan is never played running back before, converted him over from linebacker. He's going to be a really good fullback for us. Just a true freshman, but very, very solid. Gives us something a little bit different as far as our B-back play is concerned in there, a little bit more of a downhill guy for us.
Yeah, Logan got the majority of the carries there, and as you said, you thought he played well. But how big of a loss is it to not have Clay and even most of Nwanze out there on Saturday to go along with a Logan Billings?
Yeah, it's always tough going into a football game. We have 3 fullbacks on scholarship for a reason. You need all 3 of those guys, and you need to have at least 2 of them available every game because one of them can be dinged up at any moment. So not having the experience of Clay in there more than anything else, because you never know when you can turn that ball over.
What's the transition been like for Logan? You said he played linebacker in high school. Now he's a starting B-back for you against VMI on Saturday. What's it been like for him? How has he transitioned to that position? To
be functional and operational at that position. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to run that spot right there. I mean, you're really running a couple of tracks, and that's about it. However, a guy to be able to get it that's never played running back before is pretty special. I think he's done a good job with it. He's got a burst of speed. He's pretty fast. Not real shifty, but he's going to get yards, which is what I was looking for.
I had read the story about Ryan being turned into a wide receiver, originally defensive back, and it was Coach Blake Harrell, who was previously here, that noticed it in the scout team. Who was it? Was it you as another assistant coach? And what did you see in Logan that you thought, he will work well as a fullback? So
we were running against, we ran a reverse against the, I believe it was the 2 defense. He was running with the 2s at linebacker. And we ran a reverse, and Raleigh was running the reverse. He was pretty fast. And we had Logan beat. We had him dead to rights, and all of a sudden he took an angle and tracked down Raleigh. And I said, well, if you can track down Raleigh and you can change direction that fast and get yourself going, I think this kid's got a shot to play B-back for us. And he was buried in the depth chart at linebacker a little bit. So from there I said, you know what? I moved a little bit. Sam was playing B-back, Sam Llewellyn. I moved him back to A-back, and I put Logan in there. I said, let's develop this kid as a B-back, strengthen our A-back roster a little bit, and make our B-backs a little bit better.
And I think I misspoke when I said Ryan. I meant Raleigh earlier in the transition, just like Logan making the transition to B-back. You had the chance, as you mentioned earlier, you get the score in the second half. You cut it down to, what was it, a 10-point game at the time, and then VMI gets the football back. 3rd and 4 at their own 39 there. They get that long touchdown. When you go back and look at the film, what led to that breakdown or that big score for VMI late in the game?
The crazy thing about it was we're there. We're all around most of those balls, whether it's the fade ball in the end zone, whether it was the 2nd and 25 that they convert, or the 3rd and 4, the 3rd and 9 that they convert. we're around those balls. We're just not doing a good job of playing the ball in the air right now. And it's just we've got to have a little bit more confidence to go up and get those balls, leave our feet, get up there, make a play on those balls, because it's not, you're there, and I got to hand it to him. He puts the ball on the money, and he was sharp, and I think they had a couple good wide receivers that were able to do it. Like I said, they really just made plays. Even when we were in position to make plays, we just couldn't.
How much of it was also their height? I mean, they had 14 guys on their depth chart that were 6'4" or taller. You guys, for comparison's sake, have 2. And a few of those guys played wide receiver for them, like Jacob Harris, who had that big day, just a big, tall guy. How much of the issue was that they just had tall receivers out there?
Yeah, you're mismatched, and that's what they've gone for. They've gone for we've all got to find a niche, right? So our defense, we need to be a little bit more quicker and agile up front. We're going to move our front a little bit more. We're not going to be able to get the bigger of those guys on the front. So that's what they went for. They went for the bigger wide receivers and went for some big defensive linemen there. The game's played a bunch of different ways, and there's a bunch of different ways of winning with the game. So that's what they're going to do, which is probably a good idea for them.
Towards the end of the game, when you do cut it down to the one score in the final minutes, just take us to the sidelines, the thought process where VMI lined up for the onside kick. You guys go with a little pooch kick over the front line of their returners in that situation. Take us to the sideline, the conversations, and why that was the decision at that time.
So you've got 2 options, really. You can either onside kick the thing, and you'll end up getting buried a little bit with very little time left. However, you've got all of your timeouts left. So we chose to go ahead and say, okay, well, they'll bring their hands team out there. There's no ability for them to fair catch it because the ball's going to hit the ground if you pooch kick it. Right. So you give yourself an opportunity to do both. Is either you can recover the ball or pin them a little bit deeper, put it around the 25, 30-yard line anyway, and give yourself a chance to be able to at least have a chance to get the ball. Unfortunately, the ball took a perfect bounce right to the returner. We tackled it up right there, but we still had our opportunity from there. The onside kick is, if you go the onside kick route, you're going to give them the ball about the 50-yard line. And they can run the clock out a little bit, and then they can pin you deep. And for an offense like ours, we don't want to get pinned deep. So let's take our chances and let's try to bloop kick the thing. Maybe it takes a bad kick. Maybe it takes a bad bounce. You've got really one guy that can field it, and everybody else is coming down on him.
If I'm being frank, a lot of people didn't stick around in the stadium for that onside kick. That was one of those games where VMI scores 24 unanswered, and then you guys battle back. And fans of every sports team and every sport out there will say, well, don't credit the guys for doing their job and playing hard. But for your team, you give up those unanswered points, and then is it good as a coach, rewarding to still see your players battling until the very final snap in a game like that?
Yeah, I don't think we stopped playing football. I don't think we played very well. I don't think it was we quit on that game or anything like that. Now, whether we showed up or not and played very well is a different story, and I told the team that. However, they still went out there and tried their butts off, and then there was guys seriously hurt and beat up from the end of that game because they gave everything that they could possibly give in that game. So it's up to me to be able to find a way to be able to trigger that game a little bit more, and I think we will moving forward.
And that's certainly something you can't say about any of your teams, about the lack of effort from start to finish, regardless of the score or how the game is going. Brandon Rainey, how has he looked, not only in that game, but in practice throughout the week since that injury with Georgia Tech? We talked about it last Wednesday. I know you're asked about it all the time. Have you seen anything different in him? Is he 100% at this point from that knee injury?
I think so. And I thought it was last week, too. The Sanford game may not have been. He may have to shake a little bit of rust off more last week. He did a little bit more things that were not like him. He's usually pretty good with the ball. He's usually pretty good putting the ball on the money, and he's really had some really good accuracy. And that's why I thought we could use the pass game a little bit more this week when they were packing the box, try to loosen it up a little bit. But when you're off, you're just off. He had one of those days.
Now, with 2 games in the books since that injury and since his return, has the offense changed at all in what you have done, or just how it has operated since that injury, or it's been status quo just like from before the Georgia Tech game?
We changed a few things over the last 2 weeks. I think you'll see us a little bit more conventional of what we're used to doing or what you're used to seeing out of our offense here in the next coming weeks, because I do think Brandon can do it. I think he can run it a little bit more efficiently right now.
Well, Coach, we'll continue to talk about the game on Saturday, get ready for Western Carolina, and also just talk about other things in regards to Citadel football here throughout the hour, with you till the top of the hour from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston, where you can find us here every Wednesday during the football season. Have to take our first break, come back, continue to talk about Saturday's game, and get ready for the upcoming game this Saturday with Western Carolina with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, right here on The Coach's Show on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style, selection, service, quality, value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Back at the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant here at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston for the Coaches Show. The head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, with you till the top of the hour talking about that game Saturday against VMI, and then we'll turn our attention to this Saturday with Western Carolina coming to town for a 2 o'clock kickoff at Johnson Haygood Stadium, and we'll turn our attention there coming up in a little bit. But, Coach, going back to Saturday, of course, we know the final score, 34-21. Reese Udinsky had a nice game for VMI at the quarterback position, but a couple guys defensively, quite a few guys I thought stood out for you guys defensively for your defense on Saturday. And one was Dalton Owens, who is in his first year, playing in games for you guys here at the nose tackle position. There was one sequence there, if I remember correctly, he got a sack close to the goal line and came back to the very next play and made a tackle to blow up a screen play. Dalton, who also seemed to be limping and playing through some pain out there Saturday, looked like he had a good game for you guys in the defensive line.
He had a great game, and he's been playing really well. We were a little bit concerned about that position when we graduated Ken Allen, who started for 4 years for us. But he stepped in and filled it in a great spot. I mean, I think he's playing his butt off right now. Did take a little bit of an injury. We're hoping to get him back. He's a little bit questionable right now.
And the other one who's just, Mr. Consistency is Willie Eubanks every week is out there making the biggest plays, and again was your leading tackler on Saturday in that game.
Yep, has a good understanding of the defense, is in a good spot for the defense. They're going to try to cover him up as best he can and let him run around and make some plays and be able to get him into some space to be able where he can help us out.
And so the Bulldogs coming off that game against VMI 34-21. No Matt Campbell once again. Gage Russell was out there doing the punting for you guys. Put a couple inside the 5. How did you think Gage did filling in Saturday?
Gage, he's done great. He's done wonderful. We're rugby style with him a little bit, and not that he can't kick normally. I think he can kick a regular kick as well, which we may have to use a little bit more this week if he is going to be the punter. He's got to get a little bit of his rugbies up a little bit. They're starting to get a little bit low, but the best thing is that we haven't been yielding too many return yards.
Is Matt getting closer to a return?
We think so, and that's hard to tell when you're dealing with a kicker. It's his tool, it's his leg. It's one thing that he can't have. I mean, if it's an upper body injury, it's a different story. But when it's a lower body and it's a kicker right there, it's almost got to be 100% healed, ready to go.
And it's nice to have a guy on the roster who has been a starting punter for you before, because I'm sure not a lot of teams have 2 starting punters on the roster every year. Yeah,
we're in a good spot. Gage is fine. He's done a good job for us, and he stepped up. And this is the second time that he stepped up for us.
In terms of on the offense, at least in the NFL, statistically they say analytically the 2 most important things to an outcome is number 1, turnovers, 2 is explosive plays. We touched on this last week, but from the run game, would you like to see more explosive plays? And what leads to a team being able to get, because everybody would love to say, hey, I would love to run the football for 30 yards more often, but what could lead to an explosive play offensively?
Well, when it comes to the run game for us is we need to be able to pop just a little bit more. And right now we're not being able to pop the fullback at all. You need to be able to pop the fullback in order to get the A-backs going or to be able to get the quarterbacks going. So part of it is by design. Part of it is we are just trying to hammer out yards and get first downs in there and keep the defense fresh and off the field. But the other part of it is, we would like to be able to take a little bit more risk with it. We're not taking as much risk with it because of the other point that you just made, and that was the turnovers. Is you want to be able to maintain possession of the football as well, so you don't want to get too loose with it. In the past game, we've been able to get some explosive yards, and that's where they've come for us. Is we may not have been able to pop the fullback, but we have been able to get the wide receivers open. Yeah,
absolutely. And you can always join the conversation throughout the Coaches Show each and every week. Use the hashtag AskCoachBT on Twitter to submit questions. One fan and listener did ask about the use of tight ends in your offense. Last year was my first year with this team, and I remember when I first came last summer before the start of the season, and the talk was about adding some tight ends to this offense, and you have guys like Eli Lowe at the tight end position and Liam Reed. How big of a role do they play in your offense on a week-to-week basis?
Well, Eli's done a great job, and this is his first year playing tight end for us. We moved him over in the spring, and I thought he's added a nice dimension to it. We didn't use him a whole lot last week. It kind of adds to it is when you're going 8 in the box. When you add another one, they add 9 to the box. So it doesn't improve your numbers in any which way. So we didn't have him a whole lot into the plan. However, Eli should always be a part of some of our plans moving forward. He was a big part of the Sanford word plan. We used them quite a bit, and we used them quite a bit in the CSU game as well. So we pick and choose our moments to be able to use them and put them in there, but I think he does add a dynamic that could certainly help us out.
Was that a new part to the offense that was added during your time here at the Citadel that you've added now a tight end, and why was that change made?
Well, yeah, we added a tight end just to add a little bit more dimension to our offense. There's only so many formations that you can get into. There's only so many ways that you can align when you're just using the traditional 30 personnel out there with 3 backs and 0 tight ends on the field. However, you can get into a little bit more unbalanced situations. You can create 3-man lines. You can create 4-man lines, which is what we've done. We've created a little bit more in the surfaces. And what we thought is, or what we found is that you're having to defend more gaps out there. And being that we are a gap-oriented offense, is in order to be able to defend more gaps, you got to put more bodies out there and different bodies on the field. So we're going to see if it can gain us an advantage in some form or fashion, and whether it gains us an advantage to the 4-man side or the 2-man side, that's what we've got to find out.
Some big news today for a former Citadel Bulldog in that Noah Dawkins getting promoted to the active roster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and will make his debut Sunday in London against the Panthers. So I'm sure that was, you were excited to find that out.
Yeah, very happy for Noah, 4-year player for us, done a great job. Certainly a tremendous athlete, and won't be out of place on those fields.
Have you talked to him at all over these last couple of weeks since he's been in the NFL?
He came back for the CSU game. Had him on the sidelines for the CSU game. I have not spoken to him, although we did get a little bit of a heads up from Tampa Bay that they were going to sign him.
Yeah, very cool, and good for him, and well-deserved, certainly. Last week, someone was asking about this, and I did find this interesting, and last week here on the Coach's Show, I was asking about your preparation on a game day. A listener and a fan was asking about throughout the week, because coaches, you guys put in so much work that I don't think everybody even realizes. I know certainly, at least in the NFL, I mean, coaches will sleep in their offices and work 20-hour days watching film and getting ready for a game. So I'm sure it's a long-winded answer, and there's a lot that goes into it. But take us through what a normal week is like, just getting ready for a 3-hour football game on a Saturday.
Well, so Sunday we get in there, we review the film from Saturday. We get in there at about 11:30. We meet as a staff, talk a little bit about the previous game and just the operations of it and the sideline control and everything from there. Then we watch the special teams end of it as a full staff. Then we will separate out and we will go offense and defense and watch that. It usually takes us between 2 and 3 hours to watch the side of the ball. We had 104 or 5 plays 2 weeks ago, so that'll take you quite a bit of time. Mm-hmm. And then once you're done with that, you'll review it with your players, which will take about another 50 minutes or so. You kind of cut it down and make sure that's digestible for the players in about 50 minutes. Then from there is the players will go to a special teams meeting. We'll kind of get that out of the way with the players as well. And then we go out and practice. We practice somewhere around 5 to about 6:50, 7 o'clock or so. Between all the meetings and everything, we'll get a lift in, we'll get a meet in, and then we'll go out there and practice for about 16 periods or so on a Sunday, which is typical. We do a lot of special teams. We start to introduce the next week's game plan and kind of run the rest of the day before, the win or the loss, out of us and start to prep on the next week. We will typically go back as a staff and we will start to plan out the next opponent. We usually get started. The defense always gets started on 1st and 10. All their defensive calls on 1st and 10. Offensively, we always start with our run game, and we start with our formations first. And then we get a preliminary idea on Sunday, and then we put it to bed on Sunday. We usually get home around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Monday rolls around, as we're in there at 7 o'clock. We go right to film at 7 o'clock. We start our meetings, and we continue to game plan at that point. We game plan all the way through noon. We have a lunch meeting at noon, and our lunch at noon. We get our run, get our workout in, and then we come back at about 1:30 or so, and we finish off the rest of our game plan. And then we go to about 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock for us is special teams game plan, and that takes us to about 6:30, 7 o'clock. The kids have steak night. We get together for a dinner, and then usually Tony and I meet Monday night after steak night, and we sit around and talk till about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. He continues with his game planning. I'll continue with our game planning. Send the rest of the staff home just so he and I can get together and talk about the upcoming week. What does he need? What do we need to get done? What personnel changes do we need to make? And then that kind of serves as our meeting for the week right there, is what he sees the next upcoming opponent is going to be. Tuesday comes along, and we've got to have the game plan done. Everything's got to be finalized by about 11 o'clock. Because we have a 12:30 meeting that we have to get with our players and kind of issue out the game plan. And the game plan for us offensively will be mostly formations, plays, hit charts, and blocking schemes. and we'll bring the whole offensive side and defensive units in, and we'll talk about the unit at about 12:30 to 1:20. It gives us about 15 minutes to get that installed. Then from there is we'll have a special teams meeting as a staff, go through what we need to get scripted and everything for the special teams meeting at about 1:30, and then we meet with our players again at 3 o'clock, and we go by position and kind of hash out the individual positions. Then we'll have a special teams meeting there, go over the kick game, usually the kickoff, and the punt game. From there is we will get on the practice field about 4. We usually go about 22 periods. That's a full padded practice for us. That is a long day for us. We got to make sure that we get everything that we can out of a Tuesday practice. Typically, we send the staff home after practice on Tuesdays, and we kind of revisit everything back on Wednesdays. We're in 7 o'clock film rolls on Wednesdays. We make sure that we can bang out the complete and entire practice in about 2.5, 3 hours by about 9:30, 10 o'clock. We'll meet as a staff at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, review practice for the day. We talk a little bit about academics on Wednesdays, and after that we'll get back together and we'll review the scripts, offensively and defensively. 1:30 we'll get together. We'll go through the special teams, and everything in the special teams will be off the script. What do we want to do? And that's return game. We work punt return and kickoff return on Wednesdays. And we'll meet at 3 o'clock. We'll have position meetings from 3 to 3:50, and then 4 to 4, 3:50 to 4:15 or so. We'll meet special teams wise, and then we'll take the field and we'll get about a 18 to 20 period practice, depending on how early we are on. That'll be a full padded practice, but we just go thud. We do a little bit of tempo with that one. And then Thursday is I give the staff a little bit more break time in the morning. We get in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, review the film. Tony and I usually get in there fairly early at about 6:30 or so, get the scripts ready because we've got to get everything organized for practice on Thursday. Thursday's a little bit more of a lengthy team practice, so you got a little bit more scripting that goes on in there. There's not as much individual work there. So we'll get in there and review most of what we want to get done with the team stuff. Then we'll review the film with the staff, and we've got a 12:30 meeting with the players, and we will just watch the film with that one. And that's just a position meeting. We'll come back at 3 o'clock, and we'll meet at 1:30. That's a recruiting meeting. We go from about 1:30 to 2:30 on Thursdays. All recruiting, talk about the guys that we've offered, talk about the guys we need to offer, talk about where we are, everything leading up to our phone calls that we made Sunday through Wednesday, and just getting caught up on every single recruit that we've got out there, whether he's an offered guy or whether he's the next offered guy. That's kind of what we talk about, where everybody is at in recruiting, and then what positions we need to fill there. So that's a long, lengthy hour and a half meeting that we've got to handle. And then you come in, and we usually meet and talk a little bit about the upcoming game on Thursday with you guys, and do anything that we've got to handle before about a 3 o'clock meeting with the players. We'll go out there for about 16 periods on Thursday, and we send the staff home after practice. By the time Thursday's in there, everything's just about done. Friday's a little bit of a morning off for our players. I usually get in there a little bit early, about 8 o'clock, and make sure that everything's set for the week coming up. And I usually work on the call sheet at 8 o'clock. I usually work on the whatever I need to get script done wise. There's a pretty lengthy walkthrough script, that about 100 plays that we need to get scripted up between Friday and Saturday afternoon's walkthrough. So I get that all done on Friday morning. And then we head up to the hotel. The staff heads up there at about 11:30. We have a quick devotional up there, and then we watch the film from Thursday's practice. And then our players will get there at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then we will stay up there, meet up there as a staff, talk a little bit about recruiting, who's coming to the game, who do we need to meet with at the game up there. And then from there we'll travel back to campus with the players at about 5 o'clock. 5:15 is our meeting. 5:15 is a special teams meeting. 6 o'clock is a dinner for us. Then we go 6:45, come back for offense defense meeting. 7:15 is a walkthrough, and then we're usually off the field somewhere around 8 o'clock or so. We're back in the hotel somewhere around 8:30. We depart. 9 o'clock we get back to the hotel. 10 o'clock lights out on a Friday.
and then get up and play the game Saturday.
Well, I gave you Saturdays.
Yeah, right. Right. A lot goes into that, too. You don't just get up and play the game. There's a lot that builds up to the kickoff, and certainly a lot of detail that goes throughout the week to get ready for those games. I know in college you have restrictions on staff and all that sort of stuff. Do you do any sort of advanced scouting, or is it all from when the game ends on Saturday starting to those next 48 hours? Is that when you build the whole game plan for the next game?
So all the information will be done. The quality control guys will handle all the information that we need for the upcoming. As full-time assistants, we never look ahead to the next game.
Right.
However, they have to. They have no other choice. So they get ahead of, typically the defensive guys do about a 4-game breakdown. Offensively, we do a lot of our breakdowns in the off-season because you're either going to break down your previous triple option opponents or you're going to break down Furman and Wofford. So you try to get all those things out of the way.
Gotcha. Well, that certainly goes into it to get ready for just a 3-hour game on a Saturday, and it's a much larger process than that. When we come back, we'll get ready for the game this Saturday, speaking of actual football game Saturday with Western Carolina coming to town for a 2 o'clock kickoff. We'll start to preview that and get ready for the next game for the Bulldogs Saturday, 2 o'clock at Johnson Haygood Stadium with the head coach of the Citadel, Coach Brent Thompson, here on the Coaches Show on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wappi Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Back on the Coach's Show, the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston, where you can find us every Wednesday from 7 to 8 to talk Citadel football, get ready for the upcoming game. And this week, it's Western Carolina coming to town with a 2 o'clock kickoff Saturday at Johnson Haygood Stadium. And start to turn our attention to that one. Coach, Western Carolina, when you look at this team and you look at the numbers, we know the record obviously isn't where they want it to be. When you put on the film, what have been some of their biggest issues this season that has contributed to their 1-4 start?
Well, they've had I would imagine, a little bit of off-the-field issues because the quarterback didn't play. Tyree didn't play in a couple of games. He didn't play in the North Carolina State game, and he didn't play in the North Greenville game. So there may be something there. I don't know, but there's been some guys in and out of the lineup a little bit. That can contribute to it a little bit. And he did play last week, and he was back, and he played in the Mercer game, the first game of the year. So that probably could have something to do with it. This is a good football team. They have struggled a little bit. Turnovers have got them a little bit. The special teams have got them a couple times. If you go back to the Mercer game, they spotted Mercer about 14 to 21 points. I think their first 3 possessions were inside the 50-yard line. So that's a rough start to get off. Your first game of the year right there. North Greenville played them pretty tight in there. Now that was without the quarterback there. And then of course last week's game against Gardner-Webb, a little bit back and forth, and Gardner-Webb has to kick a field goal at the end of the game to beat them. But certainly was a really good ball game.
Yeah, Tyree, as you said, Tyree Adams, only starting 2 of the first 5 games so far this year, was predicted to be the top offensive player in the conference in the preseason. What makes him so tough to try to corral and defend for them when he is out there running that offense?
Yeah, he's another one. Is very dynamic at quarterback and can make you miss in a phone booth, and that's the number one thing. Is you see him out there, and I can picture him a couple of times, and we've seen him plenty now. This will be the 4th year we've seen him. That no matter what it is, if you've got him bottled up pretty good, he finds a way out of that, and he's a pretty tough guy in there. He can make the throws. They spread it out. They throw the screen game. They throw the bubble game. They throw all that stuff. They're an RPO kind of a team, so they can put you in a little bit of a run pass Byron with that kind of stuff. And then he can certainly make you miss when he gets loose.
You guys did a pretty good job against him at their place last year, containing him pretty well. Certainly as that game went along, 5 sacks on him, the comeback victory last season. It seemed like the defense a year ago did do a good job slowing him down a little bit.
Yeah, and they've had a couple of really good looks at him, and that's part of it, is when you get 3 or 4 looks on film against you going against him, you start to play to your strengths a little bit and start to try to find out what their weaknesses are, and I thought we did a good job of that last year.
And that game last year was the debut of Brandon as the starting quarterback for you in that offense, and it started with that 43-yard touchdown run for him on the opening possession, and you guys come back and win that game. Take us back. Let's go back in time here to that week leading into that game. Take us back to that week and what went into the decision to have Brandon become your starting quarterback now all the way until today moving forward.
Well, it was time for a change, and I thought we were all ready for it, and we were going to start to rebuild and rebrand the offense around what Brandon can do, and that's what we did with that game. Is we put a little bit more tight end, a little bit more zone option into that game. Some things that we hadn't done a whole lot of, but we had it in our package ready to go for him. And he did a good job. He turned the ball over a couple of times, and really I thought we were moving the ball very, very well in the first half, and we probably should have had more points on the board in the first half if it wasn't for about 2 or 3 turnovers, and of course there's always one obligatory penalty in there that they have to call on a good play. But other than that, I thought he played extremely well.
Yeah, just the one pass attempt for you guys. You kept it on the ground. You ran it really well, especially from Brandon. You had the comeback with the 28-0 run there in the second half for him. And that obviously was a change in offense for you, as you kind of just touched on, where you went to Brandon, and it looked like a fullback at the quarterback position, keeping it on the ground and running it all over the place for you.
And that's him. He played fullback for us, understands the offense from that position, and runs like a fullback, and he can do all the other things as well. But that's the guy that we need him to be. that's the guy that we can win with. And when he's not that guy, that's where it's a little bit difficult for us because we need to add the extra dimension to the offense.
And certainly an exciting game, that comeback in the second half to beat Western Carolina at their place last year. Now welcoming them in Saturday for a 2 o'clock kickoff here in just a couple of days. When you look at this team, this Catamount squad, what are some things they do defensively that you'll have to go up against Saturday?
Well, they play a three-down front, and they move it around a little bit for you. You got to find out what is their game plan, what is their game plan early, and where do they want to put the pressure on you at. I think they're trying to get their safeties involved and actively involved in the run game, which is a little bit more challenging because now you're adding 8 and 9 guys into the box that you got to find a way to move around and maneuver a little bit. However, we've also got to be able to throw the football again and be able to keep the safeties backed off of us so that we can throw the ball.
We'll continue to break down this game. We do have to take our final break, come back, and wrap things up here tonight by continuing to talk out Western Carolina and that game Saturday at Johnson Haygood Stadium with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. We'll wrap things up from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant when we come back here on the Coaches Show with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better. How do we make sure there's...
Wrapping things up here in the Coaches Show from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston, where you can find us here every Wednesday during the football season with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. And we continue to get ready for Saturday's game with Western Carolina coming to town. 2 o'clock kickoff. Coverage will begin locally at noon on the Citadel's radio network here in the Lowcountry. We kick off at 2 o'clock. We'll see you out there Saturday at Johnson Haygood Stadium. And, Coach, with this game against Western Carolina, we know coming off the loss against VMI last Saturday and Monday in the press conference, you said that this Saturday's game at Western Carolina is a must-win for you guys.
It is. It's an answer win for us. Is we've got to respond is really what I've told the team is we've got to respond. Is we know we didn't play to our potential the other day. We've got to put that behind us, and we've got to show that we can move on from that. And we can be the same team out there that beat Georgia Tech a few weeks ago. We can't forget who we were. We can't forget who we really are inside, even though we've had a couple of 4 tough losses and 3 that we really had shots to be able to win.
He said they must respond. How have they responded so well? How have they responded so far in practice this week?
You know, everything that I've seen, we had a good day today. It wasn't a great day. Yesterday was a really good day. I thought we played extremely fast. The cooler weather has helped us out. Being a little bit cooler, I think we can get a little bit more out of them at practice. They're moving around a lot better. We're getting our health back in line a little bit. Some of those guys that have been dinged up for 2 and 3 weeks, and we're just kind of getting through the games out there. I think we're starting to get them back. If we can get Matt back, we would be just about back at 100%.
You mentioned, beating Georgia Tech and the performance you played that day and trying to get back to that team. When you look at teams like, for example, last year in the NFL, the Patriots lost. All 5 of their losses came to non-playoff teams. They go on to win the Super Bowl. The Titans beat 4 playoff teams last year, didn't make the playoffs. It's a week-to-week business in football. But as a head coach, what are some things that you maybe try to do to make sure that the guys with everything, especially college athletes and everything else that they have going on, stay focused throughout the week to get that best performance out of them every Saturday, whether it's a Georgia Tech or a VMI or a Charleston Southern or anybody else on your schedule, to try to keep them as consistent as possible and get the best performance every week?
Well, number one is you have a theme. You have a theme throughout the whole week, and it's got to be something that we set out on Sunday is how do we want to handle this week? What is going to be the ultimate message in every single position meeting group right there is what are we going to talk about? What do we want to handle first? And, like we said, this week was the answer. We need to make sure there's an answer. So anytime that we have an opportunity to talk to our players or anytime that we have an opportunity to talk to our position groups, that's what we talk about for the week. And then the other thing is just try to keep them focused on the task at hand. Don't worry about anything else. Try to stay within that moment and try to be 1-0 for the week. Eliminate all the clutter, and there's a lot of clutter that goes on at school. There's everything from tours and cons to, making sure your uniform's right and making sure that you're going to all those classes and everything. So you've got to be on your game. In order to do that, in order to eliminate all the clutter in your life, you've got to be on top of those things and start to eliminate and put those things behind you, because at the Citadel, those things build up. If you don't take care of something, it'll build up on you to the point where you'll just get bogged down by it.
Got a couple minutes left with you. When you look at the season so far in terms of what the team has gone through with 2 overtime games, you had that 4 overtime game last week with Sanford out in the heat, a lot of hot weather, playing every week straight. You had the hurricane you had to deal with, tough schedule, and not to make excuses with the schedule you've been dealt with early in the year, but how is this team doing at this point, having gone through all that both physically and mentally with already the grind that it's been, like every football season is so far through the first 6 weeks?
Yeah, the same thing came up at the press conference. Would I like to have a bye week? Certainly, but I can't control those things. Would I like to have an easier front end? Maybe play a Division II in there, and an FCS non-scholarship team. Well, certainly you'd like to have all that, but that's not what was laid out for you. And you knew it was going to be difficult. You just got to prepare yourself for it. You hope that it prepared you for the rest of the schedule. And we still have 3 more weeks to go before we even get to a bye week. So it just happens to be late for us. We've got to deal with it as it comes. But we've certainly, I think we're in a good spot right now. I think being able to weather that storm, if you could say that, weather that storm as best we possibly could, and weather a little bit of the injuries. If we can stay on the plus side of the injuries, we should be good from here on out. Time for the toughest question of the night. Today was National Bring Your Teddy Bear to Work or School Day.
I left mine at home tonight, but did you have a stuffed animal or any sort of blank anything as a child that either you had a stuffed animal you named that you carried everywhere, or you just had something special that you remember back to when you were a kid?
I did. I had a dog. I had an orange dog. I used to call it, and I was really imaginative as a young kid. I called him Orangey, and the dog was Orangey. But the thing about Orangey was I had grabbed Orangey around the neck so much that all the stuffing had been squeezed out of him, and so he had no neck. However, I will say this: is my mother dug Orangey out of her house and gave it to one of my daughters.
Oh wow!
So now my daughter, the Orangey is still around.
That's fun.
And I love the heck out of that dog.
That's great. Lastly, we always ask you every week for Saturday's game, Western Carolina, what will it take to come out of there with a victory?
Well, we need to show up, and we need to show up from the first down all the way to the last down. Something that we didn't do last week, and something that really, if you don't do, if you're us, is we're going to struggle no matter what. We've got to play with an excitement. We've got to play with an emotion. We've got to play with some passion that we hadn't really dealt with last week. We played a little bit flat early on, and I think it had more to do with we got these guys kind of a deal, which we didn't. We sensed that, tried to get out to a fast start and change the momentum, but really we've got to do a better job with that.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time as always and all the detailed and honest answers throughout the night. Never easy to talk about a loss, but we always appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck Saturday against Western Carolina, and we'll do it all over again here next Wednesday.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Absolutely. That's head coach Brent Thompson of the Citadel Bulldogs. Appreciate the time each and every Wednesday here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant. Kickoff at 2 o'clock Saturday, Western Carolina. Coverage will begin at noon on the Citadel Sports Network, 102.1 FM, 92.1 FM, 1450 AM here in the Low Country. But we'll see you out there at Johnson Haygood Stadium Saturday, 2 o'clock kickoff, and back here Wednesday, a week from today, 7 o'clock right here on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Thank you.